Oh, we're live.
Here we go. We are live with Brad Fuller and Andrew Form. Let's start with Brad. Brad, for producing A Quiet Place, what was the biggest challenge?
Um, I guess the biggest challenge is when you get that script, that 67-page script, and you ask yourself or your partner, in this case Drew, the question: is an audience going? Can we make a movie that's good enough that only has 3 pages of dialogue? I think that was the biggest challenge for me.
Yeah.
Drew?
What do you think, Drew?
No, I mean, just to jump on what Brad was saying, yeah, when you get a screenplay and you, unfortunately, we do look at the last page, and because I read on paper, so it was so light when I got the screenplay. I thought it was a pilot for a television show, or it could have been just half the script. But then you start leafing through it, and you realize, wow, there is no dialogue in this script at all. And when our agents had called us, they said, we found an original idea in the genre, which is something we are always hungry for. We've done a lot of remakes and sequels and prequels in the horror thriller genre. So when you get that call that something original is coming in, you're definitely fired up for it. So then you get a 67-page script, is a couple of minutes of talking in the script. Then you look at each other like, there's a couple of questions we ask each other if we both like a screenplay. One of them is this movie theatrical? Do we feel like this movie is theatrical? Does an audience need to see this movie in a theater? And this was one that we read, and we said, well, more than maybe anything we've ever read, this feels like a theatrical experience. Like, it's all sound in this movie as far as, going to the theaters. So,
and it was a big risk. I mean, that was the thing. It was such a narrow bullseye to execute the movie and make it that compelling. With a lot of the tools that we have relied on in the past, we could not use in the making of this film. We couldn't use loud stings when we wanted to, or we didn't have a guy with who was chasing a group of kids. I mean, this was a much more cerebral film than we had made in the past.
And I guess, Drew, what do you think the most special thing about the film was?
When John pitched us his take on the film after he read the script, and we got on a Skype similar to this with John, and he was talking through the movie, he was focused on the family aspect of the film and what would happen with this family, and following this family and falling in love with these characters. And for me, that was the perfect way in. And yes, he was very aware of the tension and the scares and that other stuff, but the family drama part of the film was in the forefront, and that was what was important to him, and that was what, for us, is what made the movie so special.
And Brad, did you know when John was pitching it to you on Skype, were you aware that he and Emily would be playing the 2 leads?
No, we didn't.
Well, we were aware he was going to play the lead.
Well,
he was going to play the dad for sure.
Because we sent him the script originally for him to play the dad. That was our intent. We were prepping the television series Jack Ryan, and we were talking to John, and John was saying to us that he hoped that he could do a movie in his hiatus from Jack Ryan, and Paramount had just bought the script for us. We had read it, loved it, and Paramount bought it, and we said, well, there's this amazing role in this script, and it's a dad. And he said, well, I don't really love genre, but let me read it and I'll see if it's something, that I would be interested in. And he called us back a week later and he said, well, the good news is I do want to play the dad. And then he said, but I also want to rewrite it and direct the movie too. And so, as a producer, that's something you might not expect when you send a script to an actor. But his take on it was so compelling, which I'm sure Drew will get into, but his take on it was so compelling that by the end of that conversation, we knew that we wanted him to rewrite the script and we wanted him to direct the movie. But Drew and I, did not feel that it was right for us to say to him, and can you get your wife to star in the movie also? I mean, it felt like that's something that had to take place in their house without us there, and they had to come to some kind of agreement as to whether or not they can have a personal life and work together, which they had never done before. So the short answer is no, we had no idea Emily was going to be in the movie, but I can assure you that it's the best outcome we could have ever hoped for.
I guess, Andrew, do you want to elaborate on that fresh take that John had and how he wanted to approach the film?
Well, I mean, like I said earlier, he was all about family. He has said this in the press. He was holding his 3-week-old daughter when he was reading this screenplay, and literally absorbing it all. I mean, from the first second on the Skype with him after he said that he wanted to star, rewrite and direct, the movie was oozing out of him. I say to people, rarely do you meet a filmmaker where the movie is truly in their DNA from the start. And, he was reading a spec script that we bought. This wasn't something that he wrote originally. So he actually read this script, and this idea literally was part of him. And, the first thing he did pitch us right off the bat was the sand paths, and I'll never forget, he starts visually, they're going to walk on sand paths barefoot. That's how they're going to get around. There's going to be sand paths everywhere. And, does that really work? I've been to the beach many times, but is it actually really quiet when you walk barefoot on sand? He's like, try it. And sure enough, it really is quiet. And so you go from the sand paths on, and, one of the bigger things that we really talked about was the use of sign language, which was not in the screenplay, and how they were going to communicate, and that the Regan character, which there was a character in the film, but it wasn't Regan, and what John did with that character and started talking to us about her and how she would be the one in the movie. She is the one. And, we talked about that for a half an hour, and it was just one idea after another. And then, we kind of got off the call with him, and, we knew 1 minute into that call that he was the guy to star, direct, and rewrite. We spent another hour with him hearing all the ideas, but we knew very early, it was just there, and And when we hung up the phone, we said, we got to call Paramount Pictures and let them know we have a writer, a director, and an actor on A Quiet Place. And we did, and luckily they embraced our passion for it also, and sat with John, and here we are talking about the movie with you.
Yeah. What did Brad? What do you think what was it like on set filming the movie? The times you maybe saw John in action and just saw the whole cast and crew together working on it.
Well, the thing I was struck by most was that it was a very intimate set. This was there were really only 4 actors in the movie, and we shot at the same location for pretty much the entirety of the film. And side note, no one wore headphones because we didn't have to listen to any dialogue. So it kind of, in some ways, it felt like you were witnessing this family go through this thing. Even though it was a movie, it felt like you were witnessing it at the same time, because they just felt like such a real family when we were shooting. And that's because John and Emily went out of their way to involve Noah and Millie in their life, so that by the time we were shooting, there was a deep relationship amongst the 4 of them. And so the thing that I was most struck by was just the intimacy of that family and how authentic that felt.
And I guess, Andrew, it's such a tense movie and a movie watching experience. Was obviously not animosity, but was there a tenseness to the set and the shooting, or was it a bit more sort of intimate in a way that was relaxed and fun type thing?
I mean, I wouldn't say it was fun on set.
Yeah.
It was. I mean, it wasn't tense, behind the monitors, but definitely, you're watching these scenes play out, and you feel the tension when you're sitting there. And like Brad said, it is the first time we've ever made a movie where you don't wear headphones. There's 2 days on the entire film where you actually put your headphones on to hear the dialogue. So that is something that we're not used to, which is interesting, because you really, when you're wearing the headphones, you really are focused on what the camera is seeing and what is mic'd, and that's really all you're hearing. But when you're not wearing the headphones and you're sitting at the monitors, you hear everything around you. It's like we're shooting in the cornfield. I can hear the entire cornfield because I'm sitting in there and I don't have these headphones on, with my ears directed towards what is being said on camera. But being on set, it was a magical experience. It really was. I mean, just being there and shooting on location at this farm, in this cornfield, in this barn, in that house, those locations were there. John found this amazing location that when we scouted it, you would have thought he visited the location first before he wrote the script. And he didn't. Like, that's how magical that was. And the crew that we had on the film, I mean, you know, people, you know, like Scott Farrar, we talked about Scott Farrar, who is from ILM, who, you know, is behind all the visual effects on the film. And he came out from San Francisco for one day to visit the set and kind of get us up and running. And he never left. He just stayed with us the whole time and just was there. And if, you know, he'd leave for a day or two and come right back. And that was happening with everyone on this movie. It was one of those amazing experiences. And, you know, we're so lucky that we got to be a part of it.
Mm. And Brad, with the filming of the film, actually, Brad, do you have a favorite scene or moment from the film?
Yeah, I do. I love the waterfall scene because I feel like that shows something. Like, it was surprising. I mean, I was so surprised that John was yelling, and I thought that Noah's acting in that was so great too. The shock on his face, and that, for, you know, shooting it was one thing, but then that was a scene that we were debating whether or not how much of that scene was going to be in the movie, and the scenes that go before and after it. But so it was a little bit on the bubble for a minute in the cut, but at the end of the day, I can't even envision a movie without all of that being in there. And I do love the relationship. I have two sons, so I love the relationship between the father and son in that, and I could fully relate to it.
You know, when you're making a film, you hope when you're watching the filming that everything's going to be amazing, but you never know how everything's going to work once you put the movie together. And for me, filming the nail, like, I knew was really cool and it seemed to be working. But the idea that when you see the film, that the nail in that step is pretty much a character in the movie, I did not see coming, and was just fascinating. It was amazing to watch an audience know that nail is sticking straight up. And when she comes down the stairs and hits it, and then again, at the end of the movie, when they're coming down the stairs at the end of the film and everyone is on the edge, are they going to step on the nail again? You could feel it in the audience that people were so uncomfortable that someone might step on the nail again, and they remember it was still there. Like, that's the stuff you cannot imagine how, like, that plays out. And then when you see it happen, you're like, oh my God, like, because you're on set and the nail is there, and then, you know, you have the nail you push down, and you know, it's like it becomes very technical. But wow, for me, the nail, like, really became a character in the film, and I can't believe how that turned out.
Were people very careful of the nail on the set, that someone, like, you know, that it was on lockdown when the scene wasn't, like, quick, someone tape off the nail, get the witches' hats out, get the road markers, we can't
pull it out of the step immediately and put some tape down. Exactly.
Yeah. With the, I guess, what is, talking about the audience reaction, is there been anything about the audience reaction that surprised either of you from the film?
Well, first I'll answer about something that surprised me about the film watching it with an audience.
Yeah.
So, the first time we tried to screen the movie early on without the visual effects, and it really didn't work without the creatures in there. I mean, you could see that the story worked, but without the creatures in the movie, there were parts of the movie that I think people were not following, but not to the point where you really couldn't follow the story. At least that's what I thought. So when we screened the movie for the first time at South by Southwest for the opening night, there's a moment in the movie that I don't think any of us knew how important it was. And it's when Millie, Regan, who Millie plays, bends down in the cornfield. And she feels a pain in her ear because the creature comes out of the corn behind her. And when we had screened the movie early on, we did not have that creature there. So all you saw was Millie grab her ear. And I don't think the audience understood what was happening. And the moment that happened at South by Southwest, with all the visual effects in, when the creature came out and you saw that the creature's ear opened and that they were connected, and that's why she was feeling pain and the creature was feeling pain, the entire audience gave us that aha moment that they got it and they understood everything. And for me, that was the moment where you sit back in your chair and you're like, wow, believe we could ever have screened the movie without that moment. Now, you're talking about 5 seconds of a film, but those 5 seconds were everything. Because if you don't get that moment, like we did in the earlier cuts, they don't know that the creature and Regan are connected at all. And that was like the biggest moment for me with the first time we screened the film. And then from that moment on, they're in. They understand, and they're with you the whole way. So that was a key audience moment for me. I don't know about you.
Well, the key audience moment. Are you asking me for me as well?
Well,
Yes, I am, Brad. Yeah.
I just the thing for me is that I never experienced this before, but it feels like about 10 minutes into the movie, people just stop eating. Like there is not just eating. People get very quiet, and they stay quiet pretty much until Harvest Moon comes on, and then people move around and do something because there's sound. But I've never experienced such quiet in a theater and such awareness of the quiet in the theater. And I think that really enhanced the playability of the movie and the reason that so many people went to go see it in the theater, because that is a different experience than what you get most of the time in the movie theater.
Yeah, you definitely had to, like when I was watching, I had a few snacks, and I definitely had to time when I ate the snacks in the movie. Like there was I had to look apologetically at the people I was watching with when I had a bite.
But if that ever happened, what other movies can you remember that happening on for you?
No, I don't think any. I don't, like, off the top of my head, I can't think of one. Yeah. Tomorrow we're meant to be talking with John about the film. What do you guys have a good question to ask John? Something that you think might, I don't know, be good.
Ask him why his character had to die.
How to what? Sorry?
Why his character had to die. I wanted that character to live.
Yeah.
He knows that. But I understand why he had to die. I get it. But I wanted that character to live.
Mm-hmm. Brad did. I knew that the lead character had to sacrifice himself in the story.
You love that guy. He's saving that family. It's so heart-wrenching when he dies.
Yeah. That's true. Andrew, can you think of a good question for John?
Just anything about the movie.
Well, anything about the movie, anything you'd like him to be asked, or anything that.
I cannot think of anything right now. Okay.
Well, if you think of something in the next minute or two, let me know. I guess to wrap up our chat, I want to think if there's one thing you wanted audiences to take away from A Quiet Place, what would it be? We'll start with Brad and then go to Andrew.
Well, listen, I think that the great thing about the movie, and I think the reason that John made a movie that resonates so much, is if you tore the horror away from this movie, you still have this great story about a family trying to survive during a difficult time. And that, so I would, my concern was initially that they were selling the movie as a horror movie, and to me it feels more like a family drama that's super, super tense, right? And so I would want the audience to take away, what a great family story this is, and how it's a hopeful story about if bad things happen, that a family can still stick together and move forward in their life.
Yeah, Drew.
I think that, something we always talked about in making the film was the difference between the Evelyn and the Lee character, and that the Lee character was just trying to survive, and that the Evelyn character was actually trying to thrive. And one of my favorite scenes in the film is the homeschooling scene where she's still teaching her son. And you realize that she is not giving up, that she is hope, and they're not just going to go inside, close the doors, and put their heads in the sand. And I think for me, that's what I hope people take away from the movie, is that you can still thrive in the worst possible situation.
That's great. Well, Drew and Brad, thanks so much for talking to us today about The Quiet Place. All the best of luck for the Oscars and the Golden Globes and all the awards that are just around the corner this season.
Well, thank you very much for taking the time. We really appreciate it.
Nice to see you again.
No worries. Yes, and hopefully see you down in Sydney sometime.
Okay. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. Okay. Bye.
Yeah. All right. Bye-bye.
Okay. A press stop.